There was a couple of deep stories within the WWE at the time that saw a strong focus on developing something beyond the championship, but very few wrestlers were consistently involved in deep stories like Bray Wyatt was. The leader of the Wyatt family had placed an unmatched attention to his stories, and it goes beyond "I'm mad at you, I want to beat you." Wyatt had the deepest character in the entire WWE and prided himself on having that aspect of wrestling be dominated by him. There was so much lore and depth to the Bray Wyatt character, and to understand what I'm talking about, he used to say some nonsense that would end up being used as a way to develop his Fiend character. That's how deep it was. He looked very out of place with that era of WWE because his whole character had very strange and different motivations. While he did become one of the top talents in WWE, he was used as a guide to put over others. I think Wyatt could have been used better, but at the end of the day, someone was going to play that role and they decided on him. 2016 proved to be an important year in the history of the Wyatt family. Randy Orton, on the other hand, it was just another time where he got to show how crazy he could be. You guys know Randy Orton. He should be on a list. Blah, blah, blah. 2009 Randy Orton. We get it. But what about 2017 Randy Orton? Alright, let's get into it. Okay. On the August 23rd, 2016 episode of SmackDown Live, Randy Orton came out to talk about his match with Brock Lesnar. He had lost the match via TKO and it saw Orton bleed like crazy. Now at the time, Orton had just returned from injury and was a much needed name for SmackDown. He's a part of the older guys along with the likes of John Cena, Kane, and The Miz. It sounds funny saying The Miz, but he was kind of a veteran at this point. Bray Wyatt interrupted the promo, and this was a very common thing at the time. Anytime they wanted to transition a feud, they'd have Bray Wyatt come in. Wyatt always wanted to make his mark with the main event talent. He said he watched SummerSlam and the look on Orton's eyes. This was a way for Wyatt to show that Orton was just a man, a mere mortal. Unlike him, he called himself a god and said that he could never die. This wasn't the first time that Orton and Wyatt interacted. Before Orton went out with an injury, he was starting something with the Wyatt family. Bray felt that he was fearing that Orton shouldn't be seen as something mythical, just a man. This is similar to how everyone Wyatt feuded with beforehand. No wonder he lost. They used his own tactics against him. They're not scared of him. He told Orton to listen to the voices in his head and run. The Viper, though, was welcoming on the challenge, and that's what he wanted. But he told Orton that he's not the Predator anymore. It's him. Wyatt said he's gonna cut the serpent's head off and hang it up like a trophy. Orton reminded him of the damage. That scars aren't what he should be worried about, rather the demons inside. He accepted the challenge for Backlash but told them that there's no fear at all. He's not scared of a man that calls himself a god, and went after him. The lights went out though. Randy Orton, in response to this, promised to blindside him. Now heading into the pay-per-view, Orton was set to face off with Bray Wyatt, but they decided to wait it out since he wasn't fully cleared yet. Orton was bleeding like crazy at SummerSlam. Brock opened him up the hard way with his hands, which isn't exactly a hard thing for Brock Lesnar to do, and WWE's protocol at the time was to allow talent to heal up properly if there's any sort of head injury. So Wyatt faced Kane instead. The Apex Predator returned during the match and RKO'd the Eater of Worlds to cost him the match. Wyatt thought it was unfair but also said that attacking Orton was a way out for him. But he chose to embarrass him. Wyatt said that Orton shouldn't sleep and brought out Eric Rowan to attack. This didn't mean much though because Orton RKO'd him and rendered the attack useless, just like Bray Wyatt's pushes at the time. Orton's encounter with Rowan ended the same way the following week on SmackDown. Bray thought they were well connected until the end. Basically like, Destiny's gonna have him connected. And ironically, they were. He once again said that he can't die, because he's not a man. Bray's mind games weren't foreign to Randy Orton. He said that this was him trying his best to do all of this because he is afraid. And the he's referring to is of course Bray Wyatt. It was a matter of control for Bray Wyatt. He constantly provoked him in hiding, but this plan backfired. Randy Orton was starting to do the whole vague mind game thing that Wyatt is known for, so he went after him and ended up getting trapped inside a room. This forced Bray to teleport or something, showing that he's much more unique than Orton claims he is. Now this feud wasn't huge or anything like that, not to mention that it was the beginning of the storyline between them. But it main evented no mercy. It didn't have much heat in it because the fans already witnessed two great matches with the likes of AJ Styles and Dolph Ziggler putting on classics in their matches, but this felt like a SmackDown match. Luke Harper made a surprise return and helped Wyatt score the victory. And at face value, it looked like this was going to develop to become a heated feud, but it took an entirely different turn. Orton fell short once again later that week on SmackDown, and it was becoming much tougher to figure out Bray Wyatt. It was always one step ahead. Kane helped a little, but it wasn't enough. Then from out of nowhere, Randy decided to RKO Kane to the shock of Wyatt and Harper. It was a matter of, if I can't beat them, then join them. It seemed like Orton saw Wyatt as someone who was supernatural and tested his level of fear, as Bray had claimed many things and had his number like nobody else. Orton never lost this consistently or found himself on the losing side as much as he did during this time period than with Bray Wyatt. And with that, he had officially joined the Wyatt family. Now, I remember this very well. I used to watch every Raw and SmackDown episode. Randy Orton joining them was interesting because it posed as an opportunity to do something unique. It sounds like I'm talking vague, but let's make it simple. Other than Braun Strowman, there was no one that actually joined the Wyatt family in the past. There was Rowan, there was Harper, and there's of course Strowman. Orton was very different in his characteristics, the clothes he wears, his mentality, everything about that it makes it a unique situation. I was interested in it because SmackDown at the time had my full trust. I was shilling for that era of SmackDown like crazy, and it's not even nostalgia talking. I used to watch every show. I watched all the segments, unlike Raw, I used to skip over it. So I trusted it. I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. Orton knew that earning the trust of the Wyatts wasn't as simple as doing good by them. It required more. The SmackDown vs. Raw Survivor Series elimination match was incredible. It was the WWE at their best with plenty of stories coming to a head. Too many egos on both teams with guys refusing to put their issues aside. For Randy Orton, it was the entire opposite as he did good for Bray Wyatt and of course SmackDown. And this was enough to earn the trust of the Eater of Worlds. In storyline, it's strange to see Orton accept taking a backseat role when all he knew was prominence since he became world champion. That's literally the entire reason why he didn't rejoin Evolution after Triple H told him to fall in line. But his plan went deeper than anything Wyatt expected. Both men faced American Alpha for an opportunity at the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. While American Alpha fought hard, the mind games of the Wyatts were overwhelming, and it meant that the tag team of Slater and Rhino were facing the Wyatt family the following week. And these two were unstoppable, and it showed as they destroyed the champions and ended their title reign after 3 months. It wasn't even a tough battle for them. Their title rematch even less so. While Orton and Wyatt were champions, Harper embarked on a singles run. His run wasn't as successful, but the trio were very loyal to each other. It's also important to note that the Wyatts defended the belts under the Freebird rule. This is a rule that allows for any member of the group to defend the belts, and it worked well for New Day only a couple of weeks earlier. There was an overlooked match involving them on the final SmackDown 2016, and if you're like, who? I'm talking about the Wyatt family, of course. I really remember enjoying this one because it also had the drama of the Usos and American Alpha. Orton and Harper had the edge during this match. They were the aggressors and worked like there was no chance of American Alpha winning the belts. It was the most intense challenge that Gable and Jordan had faced, but this ended up being the match that started the cracks in this new Wyatt family. Orton accidentally knocked down Harper, leading to American Alpha taking advantage to win the titles. Now initially, the group didn't let this affect them because they thought it was a foregone conclusion in the rematch. Wyatt was convinced that the titles were coming back to them. The rematch was better because the attention was fully on these two teams as opposed to the elimination match. Orton and Bray were determined to make good on their mistakes from 2 weeks earlier. Randy Orton once again had his issues with Luke Harper, leading to the loss. It got so heated that Harper accidentally dropped Bray with a super kick. These issues were too big to ignore, and Randy Orton was involved in 3 consecutive losses, all because of the Wyatt family. It got to the point where Bray struck Harper, which in some ways showed where his loyalties lie, because when it came down to it, he wasn't willing to do the same to Randy Orton. So this led to a match between the two before the Royal Rumble. Orton won, and Bray immediately kicked Harper out of the family. This is a terrible decision in the long run for him because it ended up coming back to bite Bray Wyatt in a huge way and ended up affecting the entire trajectory of his career in WWE, in storyline of course. As for the Rumble, the Wyatts entered later in the match with Orton being a much needed asset for Bray Wyatt. While Bray did prioritize Orton over Harper, there was still a chance of him wanting back into the family, but it didn't take long for him to make his decision. Even then, Harper was thrown out while Bray and Orton made it to the final 3. Roman was too strong though and managed to eliminate Bray. The fans were more than convinced that it was Reigns because he was the guy that WWE was pushing hard, but surprisingly, it was Randy Orton. Now this is a nice tactic that WWE did. If they want you to cheer for anyone, whether it's Akira Tozawa, the Brian Kendrick, John Cena, Rusev, they put Roman Reigns in there near the end. This should have been shocking, but when you look at the names people talked about in the lead up, Randy Orton was a bit unexpected. I think the betting odds were with him the day of the show, but if you asked me at the time, I would have said The Undertaker. It made too much sense to have him face John Cena for that title, or even before the show, AJ Styles defending the title against him. But if you give it to a current talent who has a big story, it makes sense for Orton to win. Other than him, The Miz and Chris Jericho probably, and I personally wouldn't look forward much to a Miz and Cena title match looking back on it, but he was very good in his role as a villain. I would have looked forward to it in 2017, but if today me went back to that time, no. And of course, another potential winner we gotta mention is Bray Wyatt. I'll talk about that later though. The Royal Rumble winner interrupted Cena's title promo, and Bray said that it feels like everything stays the same, and in order for it to change, he has to win the chamber. There was a big tease of another Cena and Orton match for WrestleMania. He was determined to end the cycle. Luke Harper was still on them, and it led to a tag team match. Things weren't looking so good for John Cena as he fell victim to the Wyatt family. This title reign was one of the weakest booked in Cena's career. While there was a lot of pain and anguish from Harper over being overlooked and betrayed by Wyatt, he felt that the best way to eradicate these feelings was to go after Randy Orton. This was a nice side feud that showed Harper's single capabilities again. He was an underrated singles guy throughout his time in WWE, and this match was one of his most notable as he was seen as a huge threat in Orton's way. The Viper had to work super hard to get the win, and it was a very good match. Way better than what Orton and Wyatt were capable of. Later that night, Bray featured in the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. I gotta say, this match was wonderful. It's one of the best chamber matches from the last 10 years and something that Bray Wyatt will always be connected to. We gotta talk about this match if we talk about his career. He blindsided Cena's sister Abigail and everyone was convinced he was winning. I certainly was. Final clash, AJ Styles and Bray Wyatt. a thrilling battle with a conclusion that the fans were dying for. He managed to win the title, and looking back, this was a situation which was expected when he debuted, but certainly not around this time period. Because if you asked somebody in 2013, will Bray Wyatt win the WWE Championship? I think most of us would have said yes. It's just, if you ask the same question 3 years later, I'd begin to doubt it a bit. Wyatt went through plenty of feuds where he was on the losing end. For years, he's always been seen as the guy to make someone look good, and just when you least expect it, Wyatt wins the title. Great moment. I was proud of him at the time, not to mention that if he was going to keep being seen as someone who was considered a threat, then eventually he needed to win the title, just based on that logic alone. Randy Orton came out to tease what's to come. Later that week on SmackDown, Bray said he had the whole world in his hand. Now this image still looks weird because this version of Wyatt never really came close to the title, he just won it from out of nowhere. Bray was very excited and happy with his future, calling it the era of Wyatt. And the way the fans reacted, you'd think he was a face. John Cena though interrupted. He treated Wyatt like a huge threat and went back into serious business, saying no one deserves anything. They earn it. He said this because the fans were chanting that Bray deserved it. Cena called him a target and said they should get to business for the title. AJ Styles wasn't too happy about this because he was overlooked. Styles had yet to receive a one-on-one title shot and trashed Cena for thinking he could do whatever he wants. And unfortunately for Styles, he knew that Cena could, but the Phenomenal One tried his best to lay his claim for the title shot. So Daniel Bryan made it a triple threat main event. Now this was a great match. They made it seem like the deck was stacked against Bray, with Harper attacking him right before the match. This allowed for Cena and Styles to battle. Now you guys know, anytime these two face off, it's magic and something special. I always show for their matches shamelessly because they were that good. This was a pay-per-view level triple threat match. These men all went insane, especially AJ Styles, but then again, the year is 2017, so I don't even need to say it. You guys know what's up with AJ Styles that year. Wyatt felt legitimized beating these two here as he went through Cena and Styles with a convincing victory. But Randy Orton was lurking. At this point, it wasn't known if Orton was going to challenge Wyatt or the Universal Champion. Randy Orton did make it seem like he wanted Bray, but then he straight up said that he refused to face him, and to understand Orton's loyalty to Wyatt, he kneeled down and gave himself to Wyatt. This also meant he surrendered his title shot, and this was enough to give him the keys to the kingdom. Bray Wyatt felt that he had a very trustworthy ally in Randy Orton, someone who showed unwavering support like nobody else, not to mention was the most powerful ally and partner that Bray Wyatt could have. Orton was willing to be behind him as a number 2. Since Orton surrendered his title shot, a battle royal was made. Harper and Styles made it to the very end, but it was a draw. So this whole thing had to be dragged another week. It really looked like Harper was going to be added to the title match. There was a lot of teases and moments where it looked like, oh, maybe he's going to be in the title match. Impressive showing from both men here, but it ended with Styles winning. It quickly went awry for both Styles and Wyatt though. In a moment's notice, AJ Styles was ready to confront the champion. Bray promised to bring the spear of the devil against Styles. Then Orton popped up on the screen. He was at the Wyatt compound, which again, Bray Wyatt gave him the keys to the kingdom. Although I wouldn't call it a kingdom, looks like a freaking trash house. Orton said that it wasn't his world, and immediately Bray's look of pride and happiness for Orton faded. Because this world was never his. Orton revealed his master plan to take advantage from within. Wyatt looked worried over what was about to happen, as Orton was intending to burn the spear of Sister Abigail and in turn kill the spear of Wyatt. Orton burned down the house, all while Wyatt in tears was begging him not to. Great moment here. A moment that befits a WrestleMania feud. I like the long-term story involving Orton breaking down the family from within. It was much deeper than most of the stories that WWE had at the time, but it did feel weird in a way because Orton didn't feel so much of a face with the way he acted. The fans weren't even treating Wyatt like he was a heel at all. Orton was in many ways a villain because he was using deceitful tactics, and also the dynamics would have been better if it was swapped. And again, I'm just saying the dynamics would have been better if they were doing this exact same build, because if Bray tried to provoke Orton, beat him up and stuff, and then Orton destroys him as a face, then yeah, this build makes sense. But they did it in a way where Orton seemed more of a villain. Orton as the champion and Wyatt as the Royal Rumble winner makes sense, but it is what it is. Styles and Orton had a very good match for the title shot the following week. They saw the Viper reclaim his opportunity, and it was official. Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. I didn't see this coming. Not the match, but the fact that it was a title match. Because if you asked me 2 months earlier, I would have said it was AJ Styles versus The Undertaker, John Cena versus The Undertaker. Hell, I'd say AJ Styles versus John Cena again. I don't know. Orton elaborated more on his issues with Wyatt the following week on SmackDown. He said he was waiting for his opportunity for months. Attacking him didn't make sense because it wasn't going to affect him, so he tried to figure out where to hit him where it hurts. Joining the Wyatt family was the move. The venom in his veins got deeper. It was ironic to Orton that Wyatt called himself the face of fear when he was the one showing fear. There was still one more thing to do though. Take the WWE Championship. Orton said that Bray has nothing now. The champion claimed that Orton didn't kill the spear of Sister Abigail because she was forged in fire. The effect is that he knows no boundaries. Now he is limitless as she lives in him now. It's like, you didn't make me weaker, you made me stronger. Was it true? No, it certainly wasn't, as evident by the next couple of weeks of the build. Randy Orton didn't know how to answer all of this because Wyatt doused himself in the ashes of Sister Abigail. Bray started using different mind games to get into Orton's head. He told Orton that his one flaw will become his biggest strength. Before WrestleMania, Bray had to deal with his old brother, Luke Harper. It was a tough challenge, but the champion stood tall. Randy Orton made one last attempt to overcome Wyatt's mind games after his match, and I don't know how to explain this, but to put it simply from my perspective, Orton was trying to drive home the fact that he killed what was left of Sister Abigail. Even if Bray claims her spirit lives in him, it doesn't change the fact that Orton turned her spirit into char. So this is a story. Randy Orton's intelligence and cunningness has been on display for years. As strange as it was for him to take a backseat to Bray Wyatt, it came with ulterior motives. Wyatt's greatest strength was his reliance on his family. A strong family has brought him plenty of success in the past, and most importantly, an unshakable core. He channels his strength from the family, and that's where his strength has come from. Orton lost the battle but was aiming to win the war, a war that would challenge Wyatt's own spirit. How can he answer to a man that destroyed his family from within and killed what was left of Sister Abigail? An important source of inspiration for Bray Wyatt. No matter how hard he tries to convince the public, Wyatt was not the one with an advantage heading into WrestleMania. Randy Orton used these tactics many times in his career and always prioritized having a mental advantage because that's half of the battle. He broke his mind, spirit, and soul. Now this was a very long show. I watched it the day afterwards because that's how I usually used to do things back then. I remember WrestleMania 33 very well. I was pretty tired of watching it by the time this match happened, and I didn't have hopes for this despite the fact that I loved the story. So I skipped it. I made a great decision that day because I was watching the show since 11 a.m. and the last thing I wanted was to finish the show at 5 p.m. But this is my first time watching it and I have to talk about it here. I want to see how the story unfolded, but apparently not many people like that. I heard about bugs, I heard about nonsense, blah blah blah, but this is my first time actually watching the match. Orton was very intense early on, and is that the bugs and worms people were talking about? Randy Orton won, I'm sorry. Hope you enjoyed this video, peace, I'm out. Now Wyatt used a lot of tactics to get into Orton's head. He had an advantage when it came to that because while Orton did dominate in the build, he's a pure pro wrestler when the bell rings. So this is where Wyatt had a bit of an advantage. Orton doesn't use too many mind games when it comes to the matches. The champion slowed down the tempo, which is funny because it's usually Orton who does, and from out of nowhere, Orton RKO'd Bray on the outside. Back in the ring, Orton was trying his best to wrap it up but found himself in Sister Abigail position. That wasn't enough for the win though, and there's the Bucks. I despise this because I don't even hate the match yet. They're really trying hard for me to hate on this match. Orton hit an RKO from out of nowhere and that was it. What the hell? That match ended prematurely. I really thought Bray would kick out there. Very mid-match that doesn't make good on the feud, but to be honest, as a match from bell to bell, I was expecting something truly awful and disappointing. It was disappointing, but it wasn't the level of disappointing that I heard it was. Then you add the story and understand more. You know, without the story, it's like, this is not good. Then you add the story, it's like, what the hell? This is horrible. My problem with it is the weird ass bugs and worms. And of course, the issue with the match not following up on the feud. It needed to feel grander. You know, it's like, oh, this match is happening on freaking SmackDown. But this is what happens when you have a tight card. I don't think they would have tore the house down, but it needed more aggression. I wouldn't have known they had such an intense feud if I came into it at WrestleMania 33. And also, who administrated the Bucks to blind our eyes? Was it Bray Wyatt? Not a good choice. Orton came out later that week as the new WWE champion. The Viper's whole demeanor changed completely and he said that he had power over Wyatt and that he's his master. This was the post-WrestleMania crowd, so they kinda booed him. You guys know how they were, especially in this era. Bray said that Orton doesn't have power over him and that this is far from over. He was ready for his rematch, but before that could go down, Bray wanted to face Orton in a different match. A House of Horrors match. This was unknown but Orton accepted. Bray tried to take advantage and when it didn't work, Rowan made his return. Harper made the save and despite his issues with Orton, worked side by side with them. This led to a tag team match. The faces scored the victory with Bray watching on enviously. This feud was starting to fall off as Bray Wyatt moved to Raw as a part of the Superstar shakeup. Bray was still on Orton though. He still wanted to beat him. He said that their paths are gonna cross. Rowan took advantage of this and laid him out on behalf of Wyatt. Now the problem with this feud is the fact that Orton was sidetracked with Jinder Mahal. He dealt with Rowan in an ODQ match, but the modern day Maharaja wanted him to know that he's got his eyes on the title. Orton said that while Bray called the match Orton's Purgatory, it will be Wyatt's Eternal Hell. A very one-sided build. Wyatt was talking on Raw with no real pushback or responses from Orton, and it was a far cry from what their feud was earlier. House of Horrors saw Wyatt tries best with the mind games. Orton walked into many different rooms with different kinds of horrors. This house did a number on Orton. He took a rough beating and it didn't bode well for his chances in the arena. Bray was convinced that he had the match, but Orton used one of his tactics against him. Jinder Mahal though interfered and cost Orton the match. There it is, Bray Wyatt won. And by the way, it was a non-title match because they changed it. It was initially supposed to be for the WWE Championship, but they didn't bother. I liked the concept and actually enjoyed Wyatt's feud with Matt Hardy, but this match felt rushed. I would also say that it was the first time, so there's that, but judging by the way things were at the time, it felt like it was rushed in as a way to get it over with, as evident by the Jinder Mahal feud. Like, they were salivating to give Jinder the belt at this point. But that's the feud. Bray Wyatt ended it on top, although it wasn't really that emphatic, because Orton had to transition into a feud with Jinder Mahal, but he won the feud. Personally, I like this long-term storytelling here. WWE really knew what they were doing with having Orton infiltrate the Wyatt family. It's just, if Orton was gonna end the whole story as a face, I think they should have tried to make Wyatt seem more evil than he was in the past, because it felt like Orton was the one who was more evil. That's the only problem I have with this feud. Obviously, Wyatt won the belt and became a transitional champion to give it back to Orton, but this could have been their chance to establish Bray as a much bigger talent than he was in the past. It is unfortunate for him because at the end of the day, this feud, it didn't fulfill its full potential, I'd say. Up to this whole burning down the Wyatt family compound thing, it was excellent, but like, there's some things out there that kind of drag it a bit down, but it was still a good feud, so there's that. Alright, what you guys think of the Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt feud? Please comment down below, and that's for this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the like button, or perhaps the RKO on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.